Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers welcomed his former team to town on Sunday night. Also, the Baltimore Ravens might have saved their season, and LSU, well, they haven't. They're moving on from head coach Brian Kelly.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Green Bay Packers traveled to take on Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers on Sunday night. I reacted to Rodgers' first and likely only matchup against his former team on a live episode of Locked On Packers. This game could have been an even bigger win for the Packers than it was. They could have scored 40-plus points in this game against the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road in a game that you could tell watching it, guys. The Steelers wanted to win this game. And not just win it, they wanted to win it for Aaron Rodgers, but they wanted to win it for them too. People don't go into Acrisure Stadium, that's Heinz Field, be serious, and win games. It's a really tough place to play. Packers fans shout out because there were multiple loud "Go Pack Go" chants heard on the broadcast and like really loud at the end because a lot of the Steelers fans had trickled out. But Jordan Love did everything the Packers needed him to do. 29 of 37 for 360, 3 touchdowns, a passer rating of 134.2. That's almost 10 yards an attempt. Just for reference, Aaron Rodgers also attempted 36 passes, one fewer than Jordan Love. And even with the garbage time yards and touchdown, 219 yards on 36 attempts. 6 yards per pass, 2 touchdowns, and a 101.5 passer rating. Ultimately, the numbers look better than they were for Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers was able to create a couple chunk plays in the first half that set the Steelers up for field goals. The DK Metcalf one was a killer. The defense looked like they were a little bit out of sorts. And then all it took was a couple splash plays here and there on defense and the offense catching fire. Jordan Love had 20 straight completions. He did something in front of Aaron Rodgers that Aaron Rodgers never did. Aaron Rodgers never completed 20 straight passes in his NFL, well, in his Packers career. I don't know what he did with the Jets. My hunch would be he didn't do it in New York either. This is as well as you can play for a half. He played quarterback as well as you can play quarterback. And I thought he played well in the first half too. He had a ball on third down, go right off Tucker Kraft's chest. Had another ball, a back shoulder go ball to Romeo Doubs that Doubs gets 2 hands on and drops the first third down of the game. Romeo Doubs gets 2 hands on and can't finish the play. So it could have even been a bigger day for Jordan Love. This was the kind of game. Find the answers for pressure. Matt LaFleur, quick passes. Just get the ball out quick to Tucker Kraft. Hey, look what can happen. And then let Jordan Love make a few sicko throws, a few plays that only Jordan Love would even, like Collinsworth said it, only Jordan Love would even think to make some of these throws. The one to Christian Watson back across his body where he floats it over the safety. That ball, when he threw it, I went, oh no. But the safety, he doesn't think there's any chance Jordan Love is going to make that throw. He doesn't think there's any chance that ball is going to keep going. And guess what? It does. And it goes right into Christian Watson's chest. The Tucker Kraft third down, where he's got pressure in his face. Kraft is on a corner route. And Love just throws it to space and expects Tucker Kraft to go get there. That was not a dangerous throw. He throws it to space. I can't believe he got enough on that throw to get it out there. Kraft plays it better than the DB. DB's got his back turned. That's open. You know who always said that? Aaron Rodgers. When we talk about Jordan Love controlling a game, this is something we've gone back to over and over. The Brian Gutekunst quote about wanting to see Jordan control the game. This was controlled. He was in full command of everything the Packers were doing. And there were, in the first half, Some play calls I didn't love. I didn't love some of the personnel usage. Why are you throwing go routes to Romeo Doubs when you have Christian Watson and Matthew Golden healthy in this game? Matthew Golden was not a big part of this offense. It didn't matter because Christian Watson was, and because Tucker Kraft is a damn treasure. He, on National Tight End Day, and we'll get to that, was the best tight end in the NFL for a day. So this offense, all of a sudden, found some answers. Okay, you're not running the ball early. Here's what you're going to do. Find those quick outlets. Get the ball to Tucker Kraft quickly. Get the ball to your checkdowns quickly. And then make a couple throws down the field that just not that many guys are even going to think about making. They hit a number of explosives in this game. And remember what we said on Friday. I came on the show and I said the Packers were going to play their best game since week 1. And they played their best game since week 1. And were there some hiccups? Yes, as was pointed out in the chat. Did I absolutely nail a 2nd and 10 run after Jordan Love had a deep ball incompletion? Yes. Did I say I would bet my mortgage on it? Yes. I didn't get a chance to do that, but I did. Our friends at FanDuel, I had the Packers money line and I had the over. Comfortably went over. And we hit that at almost 2-1. This is the version of Jordan Love that makes you believe the Packers are Super Bowl contenders. And he doesn't have to be an MVP level. Like this was MVP Jordan Love. If Jordan Love is going to get in the MVP conversation, it's these sorts of games on Sunday Night Football in Pittsburgh against Aaron Rodgers. All the narrative momentum on Aaron Rodgers' side in a lot of ways, had the opportunity to beat the Packers, to beat every team in the NFL. It looks like Aaron Rodgers is not going to get that opportunity. And you know who prevented him from having that opportunity? Jordan Love. And we don't have to get back into the silliness of 2020 or 2021 or any of the mishigas in there. We don't need to do that. This game to me came down to Jordan Love playing like the franchise quarterback the Packers believed he could be when they drafted him in 2020. Stay up to date all year on the Green Bay Packers by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Packers on your favorite podcast app. Your Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, the Ravens might have saved their season. Before we get to that, we take a look around the rest of the NFL. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for this weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet in the moment. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. The New York Jets picked up their first win of the season in a comeback victory over the Bengals.
The Jets' first win of 2025 comes out of absolutely nowhere. Justin Fields was the lightning rod of criticism this week in the NFL. He had been playing terrible football. Even his owner was criticizing him. If Tyrod Taylor had been healthy enough to start this game, Fields probably would have been on the bench, but he responded in a big way, throwing for 244 yards as the Jets put up 39 points to somehow outlast the Cincinnati Bengals 39-38. The offense carried the day. Nobody saw this offensive outburst coming. And in a game that looked like it was going to be a Bengals blowout early, the Jets register a huge comeback. It's Aaron Glenn's first win. This team needed a win so badly. Now everybody can take a deep breath going into the bye week, and maybe this Jets team starting to turn things around.
Jonathan Taylor and the Colts thrash the Titans.
Another dominating Colts win here today at Lucas Oil Stadium as they win 38-14 over the division rival Tennessee Titans. They moved to 7-1 in another pivotal AFC matchup next week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But this was just more of what we've seen all year. Another smothering, again, dominating win. Efficient football by Daniel Jones, but a huge performance by Jonathan Taylor. Another 150 yards, 3 touchdowns. The dude is firmly in the MVP discussion now. That's 14 on the year. we're just witnessing greatness right now, guys. Like, I really don't know what else there is to say about Jonathan Taylor. It's more history every week. An 80-yard touchdown today, like, it's just hard to put into words what we're witnessing on a week-to-week basis from this very special player. But again, he seems like a shoo-in for Offensive Player of the Year at this point. Should very much be in the MVP discussion. But yeah, defensively, you held Tennessee to 2 scores, 1 in the first half, and then, kind of a garbage time touchdown later on. 4 sacks, I think it was. You got a pick in the fourth quarter. You got 3 sacks from your interior with DeForest Buckner, Adetomiwa Adebawore, and Neville Gallimore. So impressive there. Still some work to do, but again, this team is 7-1 going into next week in another playoff caliber matchup against the Steelers. That is Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. So we've obviously got way more for you guys on Locked On Colts and the Locked On Colts Squad Show. Make sure to check us out, obviously on game days, but again, Monday through Friday on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Drake May's dominance continued against the Browns.
Patriots 30, Browns 13, as Cleveland drops to 2-6 on the season and heads into the bye week with those frustrations continuing to mount, and they bubble back to the surface. Last week, the win over the Dolphins, all the goodwill that seemed to create, and the hopes that it would build it could be a momentum builder for this team, all that goes away, all of that dissipates, and they head into the bye with the frustrations mounting yet again. Myles Garrett, who had a career day, 5 sacks, the most of his career, and is now at the top of the list in terms of the most sacks a player's recorded before the age of 30. He passed Reggie White today. Didn't matter. And with his 5-sack performance, and Myles even said he would have traded that performance for a win, and that's what's important to him right now. He had a frustrating moment on the sidelines where he chucked his helmet down to the ground in the final couple minutes. Jerry Jeudy similarly throwing his helmet after failing to catch a pass along the sideline in the red zone late in the game on a 4th down pass to score a touchdown. And it just seems like those frustrations bubbling back to the surface and busting at the seams, if you will, as this Browns team tries to find answers, but they're not coming. They're not coming. There's 9 games to go in the season, 10 total weeks with the bye here coming up, and there's no magic pill or secret elixir that's going to fix all this during the season. Those things aren't going to come until the offseason. The rest of this year becomes largely about keeping this thing on the tracks if you're this coaching staff and general manager, and whether or not they're the right people for these jobs moving forward, and figuring out how you're going to solve the glaring holes that this team has. But the goodwill was short-lived from that win over Miami, and that Jets game waiting for him on the other side of the bye is now a little bit more daunting because the Jets beat the Bengals today, who the Browns couldn't beat in week 1. So a lot of different things sort of swirling. We'll talk about it in a deeper dive with our post-game episode of the Locked On Browns podcast. But man, oh man, what a disappointing performance from the Browns today as they fall 30-13 in New England.
And the Giants not only lost to the Eagles, but lost Cam Scatterbo in the process.
The Philadelphia Eagles just completely dismantled the New York Giants. And my main takeaway, Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni deserve a lot of credit. We've been on them all year, and rightfully so, but they have completely turned around the offense the last 2 games by using more under center looks, play action, outside zone, running attacks. That allowed the Eagles to rush for over 200 yards today. Saquon Barkley, the explosive home runs were there. Jalen Hurts, just surgical, only 5 incompletions on the day, 4 passing touchdowns. Jalen looked like Super Bowl 59 Jalen, again, 2 weeks in a row. But Kevin Patullo, I mean, the marriage of the run and pass concepts has been really impressive. Perfect red zone play calling. They've fixed this thing, and it's only been 2 games. Got to keep it going, but I've been really impressed with the Eagles' offensive coaching staff in these last 2 wins, and now just like that, the Eagles are 6-2, and all feels right in the world.
The Baltimore Ravens finally picked up a win without Lamar Jackson in the lineup. Locked On Ravens host Kevin Ostreicher reacts to Baltimore's win over the Chicago Bears and what it means for the rest of the season.
All right, let's talk about it. I mean, I feel a lot better about this Ravens team right now, especially with the opponent they're playing next week in the Dolphins. Now, to the Dolphins' credit, they put it to the Falcons here in week number 8, so maybe not as easy of a game as maybe I thought. But we got the Locked On Ravens reverse jinx going. And we picked up the dub here. The Ravens picked up the dub. So Tyler Huntley is the one that I want to start off with here. I want to give a major shout out to Snoop because he showed up. There was a lot of doubt. I also was kind of skeptical about this, right? I was like, Tyler Huntley, really? Can he come in? The Ravens have let him go twice. He stepped up to the occasion. Tyler Huntley owns the Bears, 2-0 in his 2 starts against Chicago, 17-22, 186 yards with 1 touchdown through the air. Also had 8 carries for 53 yards on the ground. You could just see the night and day difference between Tyler Huntley and Cooper Rush. And I've talked about it a ton over the course of the offseason, during the season, and now obviously it's been under the magnifying glass over the last couple of weeks where, look, Cooper Rush was not a smart signing by Eric DeCosta. I'm fine with him spending the money on a backup quarterback to, get a better guy in, but the fit was always weird, right? The fit was always weird from a system perspective. We saw that he stressed the Bears defense out with some of the option plays, some of the runs that he had. Cooper Rush can't do that. Cooper Rush cannot do that. So I love what I saw from Tyler. I also love the fact that it wasn't just short dink and dunk stuff. It was, you were throwing this ball down the field a little bit. You got Rashad Bateman involved there. Mark Andrews had a big play. So, I'm excited that we got to see that version of Tyler too, a quarterback that notoriously does struggle a little bit with the deep ball. We've seen that over the course of Huntley's career. I was really happy that he was able to push the ball down the field because it kept the defense on their toes, which was really good, really exciting. And I just, I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. And, we're learning more about Tyler Huntley and him finding out he was starting on Saturday night. And, apparently he texted John Harbaugh early in camp and said he wanted an opportunity. And Huntley wanted to be back in Baltimore. It ended up working out. But Tyler Huntley saved this season for the Ravens. If they had fallen to 1-6 like we talked about, the season would have been all but over.
Stay up to date all year on the Baltimore Ravens by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Ravens on your favorite podcast app. Coming up, LSU football is going to be looking for a new head coach. They fired Brian Kelly on Sunday. The LSU Tigers are officially moving on from Brian Kelly. Locked On LSU host Matt Moscana reacts to the shocking news.
This was an all-in season for LSU. Consider, Brian Kelly, I want to remind you, Brian Kelly, before this season, made the now infamous "we're taking receipts" comments. If you missed it, this was Brian Kelly.
We're taking receipts and, we'll see you at the national championship. This team's building. We're excited about them, and we're really proud of them.
So when the head coach says we're taking receipts, we'll see you at the national championship, and then asks for fan and booster support for NIL, even doing the $1 million match. Remember, Brian Kelly himself put $1 million of his own money into this roster. Okay. So however you want to phrase it, the man put his money where his mouth is. He put $1 million of his own money into this. And then they went all in the transfer portal. They signed the number 1 portal class in the country. I've been very transparent with you when I've had numbers and shared them with you. You don't need me to tell you anything off the record. Brian Kelly said on the record, $18 million is what they spent on this roster. Okay, well, if you're all in, you're talking about taking receipts and being all in for a championship, $18 million roster, you're a preseason top 10 team in the country, and you got 3 losses before November, and it's over. And by the way, you lose to Vanderbilt. It's your second loss. You go into this home game against Texas A&M with an all-in approach, understanding like you lose one more time and it's over. So you have to win to keep your playoff dream alive. And you're up 18-14 at half, and then you are blitzkrieg 21-0 in the third quarter. You lose the second half 35-7. The fans empty out. The A&M crowd takes over. The team leaves the field. Frank Wilson has to bring some guys back out to do the alma mater. Kelly, who had left, then comes back out. I mean, it was a total mess of a circumstance that was embarrassing. It was the low point that you wonder, on this low point, How do you come back from a point this low? And ultimately, they didn't. And as I was told, and we will get into some of we'll get into the money and how the buyout all is going to work here in just a second, because that's a giant part of this, which is how do you pay a $50 million buyout when you're not a super rich state and rich athletic department? I'll get to that in a second. But that's when those conversations started happening Saturday night. They very quickly accelerated up to the point where this became beyond the point of no return. The power brokers had made up their minds. It was done, and they were going to move on from Brian Kelly. So where they go from here is what we'll talk about. I think it's also very easy sometimes to throw the baby out with the bathwater. When something goes as badly as this game did, as the start of this season has, with LSU at 5-3, now out of the top 25 after being a preseason top 10 team with all the expectations after beating Clemson. We can look at Brian Kelly's tenure and look at some good. He inherited a terrible situation that he took over from Ed Orgeron. They were 5-5 in 2020. They were 6-7 in 2021. They had 38 players on the roster. Kelly established a baseline where they went 10 wins back-to-back seasons. They won the West in year one. Obviously, Jaden Daniels' Heisman season in year two in 2023. But that's the one that I think we'll all look back on and say, but for the worst defense statistically in the history of the program, that might have been Kelly's championship team. That might have been his championship opportunity, but they missed.
If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, be sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, can the Chiefs pick up an easy win over the Commanders? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.